Welcome to the American Small Business League podcast. I am Bruce DeTorres, and with me is Evan Hunt, who's running as a Democrat for Congress in Texas District 3. Evan is a 20-year Air Force veteran and combat aviator, community and business leader, and family man who is running to take, quote, our country back from extremist agendas and to better represent the diverse people of District 3, end quote. Thank you very much for joining me again. Evan, how are you?
Thanks, Bruce. Good to be here. I'm doing well.
I'm very eager to catch up with you. You were on the show last year. My intention is to capture a great video that you want to put everywhere that really serves you for your campaigning purposes, and then we'll discuss the small business issues that are near and dear to our hearts. So, how do you start when someone says, "Hey, who are you and why are you running?"
Okay, well, thank you. So I say I am Evan Hunt, and it's the honor of my life to be the Democratic nominee for Texas's third congressional district. You can find me at electevanhunt.com or elect Evan Hunt on virtually all socials. Our primaries ended in March, and we find ourselves in a real race. The third congressional district was recently redrawn out of cycle and gerrymandered to go across 7 counties. So that stretches from East Plano through McKinney, Allen, Wiley, Saxe, Murphy, out to Greenville, and out to Sulphur Springs and Mount Pleasant. So that's across 7 counties, 1 million people, one of the fastest growing districts in the entire country that is not represented by a Democrat. And we're here to change that. Um, I think there's something a little twisted in our American soul. I think there's something a little broken in our system. And I think the current administration and the MAGA Republican Party is making things worse, not better for average Americans. Uh, I believe that America is a place that you can say what you want to say, love who you want to love, worship how you want to worship, and then be who you want to be. I think that's the America our ancestors marched for and fought for, and that's the America that I want to leave to my kids. Certainly the America I went to war for. And I think, my experience after 20 years in the military and in business is that when Americans come together, especially working together in government, we can do incredible things. So it's not that our government isn't working, it's just not working for everyday Americans. And in order to fix that, we need to put people in charge that are willing to set the right example and are willing to focus on real issues, not endless culture wars, not this politics of distraction and division, which we find ourselves in right now. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be running. I'm doing my small part. Third district has not been represented by Democrats since 1968, but we have, I believe, a wave of change coming. Something big is happening in Texas, as James Tallarico likes to say. So I'm just proud to be part of it.
Thank you very much. Where in Texas is your district?
Okay, so Texas, if you fly into DFW, we're just north of Dallas. And if you
Uh,
go north of Dallas, we're about 45 minutes from DFW. You kind of run into the town of McKinney. And then if you drive east for nearly 3 hours, you stay in our district across 7 counties all the way until you get to the border.
okay. So above Dallas, it kind of starts on the western part of the district.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Well, yeah, McKinney's like the East Plano and McKinney are the
Yeah.
westernmost border of the district. And
Right.
then it
Right.
goes straight east. It looks like a giant, I don't know, snake basically that hits the border
Right.
um, across. So it's 80% of the votes are in Collin County.
Okay.
10% of the votes are in Hunt County. And then 10% of the votes are in the other 5 counties that have been drawn into this district. So that's
Yeah.
Delta, Titus, Morris, Hopkins, and Franklin counties.
Yeah. There's
Lots of
not.
land, but not that many people out there.
Okay. You mentioned the recent primary. Did that impact you as a Democrat in any way?
So when I first jumped into this race last April, May, there was primary opponent named Jordan Wheatley. We ran against each other for 4 or 5 months. And actually, before the primary election, he decided to switch races, and now he's running for a state house district
Okay.
in, I believe it's House District 67. Um, and so by the time I got to the primary, I did not have an opponent. Ironically, my opponent, Keith Self, the Republican incumbent, did have a primary opponent named Mark Nugent, but Mark only got 10% of the votes. And so Keith pretty firmly reaffirmed his Republican base.
Hmm.
That being said, we had incredible primary turnout down here in third district. So uh, Democrats had roughly 60,000 votes, which is about 150% more than they had 2 years ago. So just an enormous change.
Are you the?
Republicans only had,
No, finish. I'm sorry.
okay, Republicans only had 10% more votes, kind of keeping up with population growth, but and they had 79,000 votes. So 60,000 versus 79,000. What's important about that extra 19,000 is they did not vote for Keith Self. They voted for Mark Nugent, or they chose not to fill the bubble for either one of them.
Hmm.
And that means those votes are up for grabs for us. If we just get half of them, we can win.
Tell me about your district, the wants, needs, problems of your district, and the things that are very straightforward. Your proposals to appeal to, um, especially the Republicans in your district, it being such a stronghold since 1968, that can make them say, "Hey, I want to vet this Evan Hunt because I like what I just heard." Talk to me about all that kind of stuff.
So, um, there's some demographics about the district start. Like I said, about 1 million people. Incredible growth here. I mean, 8 years ago when I moved to McKinney, there wasn't any traffic on the roads, never hunted for a parking spot. And now you can just imagine people are moving here in droves. We we have an average household income of about $110,000, which is pretty affluent, actually. So one of the most affluent districts in the country. Again, not to be represented by a Democrat. One of the most highly educated districts in the country. A lot of um, more than half the population has a college degree. So this is not sort of a standard red district. This is highly educated, highly affluent, what I would call people that vote in their business interests, people that vote with the stock market, people that tend to align with the Republican Party because they kind of favor conservative, smaller government, fiscal responsibility. Um, and what I tell everyone is that, you know, parties are constantly changing. And this Trump MAGA variant of the Republican Party is not anything close to the Republican Party of old. It is not conservative. It has exploded our deficit. He himself, although he likes to preach about fiscal responsibility, voted in favor of the big, beautiful bill. And he's voted in line with Trump on pretty much everything. I also remind people that ICE agents in our streets is not conservative, right? We deserve to be policed by uh, people from our communities, not masked federal agents that are dressing up like Navy SEALs. So I tell Democrats we really need to focus on winning issues. So winning issues include healthcare reform. The Republican Party has totally failed in coming up with a better healthcare plan. Certainly, the Affordable Care Act has some problems. I think it solved some major issues we had with healthcare, but some other problems grew out of it. And certainly, we should have come up with a better plan before we've discussed ripping the rug out from under Americans that are going to cause their healthcare costs to explode. So 10% of my district is reliant on the ACA subsidies. And with the removal of those ACA subsidies, they'll see their healthcare monthly bill go up $500 to $1,000 a month. And Democrats like to talk a lot about affordability, but healthcare is a major, major driver of affordability because everybody needs healthcare at some point. And so when you start telling people, hey, you're gonna have to pay 500 or $1,000 more, That is a real problem, and it's a problem for small businesses, as you know, Bruce, right? Making sure you offer your employees a reasonable healthcare plan. Um, and so I think Democrats have a real opportunity to focus on reforming healthcare, bold reforms that will be better for average people and better for small businesses. Um, Sometimes those proposals are Medicare for all. Sometimes those proposals are a hybrid public-private option, um, like like Mark Cuban has done here in Texas with pharmaceuticals, right? He's found ways to cut middlemen out of the system, make sure that we keep prices low. There are proposals right now to break up hospital network monopolies. And I always talk about CVS as just one good example. CVS owns every portion of the healthcare circle. So it doesn't matter if you're being prescribed medicine or you're buying medicine or you're building medicine, CVS owns that chain. And so, in the interest of small businesses, and this stretches beyond healthcare, we need to break up this consolidation of power and consolidation of money that we see and get back to healthy competition.
I want to interject, if I could, in a couple of different directions. What expertise did you get out of your long career in the Air Force? And then talk, please, about your business experience.
Yeah, so I did 10 years, roughly 10 years active duty in the Air Force. So I joined after 9/11, and I was a backseater on B-1 bombers, what you call a weapon systems officer. So I did multiple deployments, flying combat missions in Afghanistan, doing what we call close air support. So dropping precision guided munitions in support of our troops that were getting attacked under fire. I eventually transitioned into an instructor role and a combat planning role. So you're planning the air war and briefing generals on the war. And at that time, it was Operation New Dawn in Iraq and still OEF in Afghanistan. Um, Seeking a better life for my family with this endless cycle of deployments we were on in the Middle East. I transitioned to the Air National Guard, which was a little bit more stable, and had the honor of becoming a squadron commander, eventually a deputy group commander of a uh, aircraft maintenance group. So the guys and girls who were fixing the airplanes. So had leadership experience there. Um, Military life is very hard, especially single income with a young family. Even as an officer, you're not really making what I would call a great salary to raise a family. So I did transition off of full time to part time into business. Went to a smaller business and cut my teeth on business development. So kind of a complex version of sales and technology. So with commercial and defense customers. I was working with directed energy and fiber laser amplifiers at the time. Raytheon eventually hired me. They were one of my customers. I worked at Raytheon for roughly 6 years. I ran their counter drone campaign, so I was very focused on air defense, right? Protecting our troops from the emerging drone threat. And finally, I worked at a private equity backed startup as a chief revenue officer for a couple of years. I was recruited out of Raytheon to do that. Now I work for a company that makes radars that detect drones, and I run their business development team. So our focus is helping partners around the world grow, partners and integrators grow, and make sure they're using the best radar technology they can be using to defend against drones. Um,
What's driving? I'm gonna ping pong here, Evan. Thanks for your flexibility, just to squeeze in as much as we can in our
Please.
time. You described a very exciting picture of the growth of your district. It's attracting businesses and people. What's happening in your district that's causing that?
Raytheon has a huge facility in McKinney, Texas. We've seen a lot of large corporations and large companies moving to Texas. There's favorable taxes that attract those companies. There's very little. There's a lot of land, Cooper land that is close to major international airports like DFW. And there are pretty good schools around here. So we've just seen this explosive growth in the tech industry. So it's not really just defense, it's also just tech in general. Tesla has moved here. ExxonMobil just moved their headquarters here. We've got, um, yeah, pick a company. It's here. The PGA just moved to Frisco. So there's a combination, I think, of things that have attracted large businesses. I think those large businesses have made it, in some ways harder for small businesses. So Texas doesn't demand a lot of big companies to move here, especially when they're building major infrastructure. We have a big problem with AI and data centers now because they come in place, unlike companies like Raytheon or like Tesla, data centers place a lot of demand on the electrical grid and on the water supply, but don't really come with long-term jobs. They come with a short burst in jobs to build the data center. These places are massive for 3 or 4 years. Then they tend to run on their own. But the water and electrical demand stays. So I think Texas has been big business friendly and has attracted a lot of big businesses, and that has driven a lot of growth. But I think, frankly, the chickens are coming home to roost. We have real water problems, real grid problems. Small businesses are struggling to keep up. Affordable housing is an issue. Public schools are sort of overcrowded, and we're trying different ways to solve these problems, but I think Democrats have better solutions than Republicans.
Thank you. I want to talk about small businesses and get your thoughts and intentions and things like that. And necessarily through our lens at the American Small Business League, which is focused on the federal contract dollars that should be
Yes.
going to small businesses, as the stated goal of the government is 23% of federal contract dollars every year is supposed to go to small businesses. And we are nothing but a small business nation, 36 million small businesses. 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses, according to the government's general definition of up to 500 employees. We think that's too large because 98% of all businesses have less than 100 employees. That still makes us a small business nation. But even using the government's up to 500, that means that 0.1% are big businesses. And every year, the SBA, which oversees this, tells us success. The government gave more than 23% of federal contract dollars to small businesses. And that is simply not the case. Our legal victories, congressional investigations, the SBA's own inspector general for decades has found big businesses getting small business contracts. And the problem with that is those companies are already big. They don't create new jobs to do that work. Whereas if small businesses got the contract dollars we're told that they get and that they're supposed to get, they would create hundreds of thousands of extra jobs every year, even up to 2 million if the contracts are going to big business that we see, so many of them that it's just starving small businesses from this economic stimulus, which was the intention of the 1953 Small Business Act that created this stipulation. It created the SBA, the Small Business Administration. That's our bugaboo. That is what we have been blowing the horn about, tugging the sleeve of Congress, senators, the SBA, the media. And we want you, Evan, as you know, to embrace this, talk about it, and kind of pledge to look into it, prove it. Go to, people can go to our site, asbl.com, and see this, because if you do a Google search, you're not going to find this as reality. Reality is the official mainstream story, which is funded by the giant corporations that own and control not only presidents and the administrators of the SBA, but senators and congressmen for decades. Big giant corporate interests have a lock on Congress and do not want anyone to know what I just told you. So
Yeah.
reply to me about this particularly. What did you know about it before we introduced ourselves to you last year? And what do you think about it today?
I think what is really truly natural is power and wealth consolidates over time. And the job of the federal government, the job of government representatives is to represent public interest in the face of that consolidation of power and wealth and ensure that basically monopolies don't form and you can have healthy competition, allow new entry into the market. Small business is always that new entry. And I agree with you. I find uh, we, I wasn't tracking until I'd met with you guys the last time that small businesses are 99% of innovation and new jobs. But that definitely checks with my experience, right? You've got these massive corporations that do some incredible things, but they tend to move people around within their organization to respond to new contracts or new opportunities, as opposed to really starting something fresh and new and hiring a whole bunch of new people. So I look in my career, I've seen um, new big businesses crop up, but not really very healthy competition amongst small businesses. So in the defense industry, Anduril is now winning a bunch of defense contracts, but Anduril has turned into another monstrous business that competes with the likes of Raytheon and Lockheed. I think the government has sort of unwound itself. The government committed to a certain percentage of contracts going to small businesses. Government also, in an attempt to try to move faster and do things differently, they came up with other transaction authorities, other legal ways to do acquisition. And what that did is that allowed them to move money around in the way they want, um, and not follow the existing law. And I think small businesses are suffering across the board. I think tariffs have hurt small businesses. I think our rural agricultural small family farms are suffering. I think certainly in the restaurant industry and the retail industry, it's hard for small businesses to keep up with rent and with the demands for benefits. And that's why we see more and more, another Chili's is already on the west side of town. A new business is coming on the east side of town. Then you find out it's another Chili's. It's not a family owned restaurant. So we have a problem with seed consolidation with just a few companies. We have just a few energy companies. There should be more healthy competition. And I think the federal government's job is to ensure that monopolies or what amount to monopolies are effectively broken up and you allow for new entrants into the playing field because that's what true healthy competition looks like. And that's what's really best for the American consumer.
I want to mention your undergrad and then your master's. Tell everyone what your undergrad's in and also your master's, please.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so I went to University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I have a dual major in history and political science. I actually focused on World War II on the history side, and then my master's is in international relations and conflict resolution. And so I have a keen interest in the government doing its job to ensure healthy competition and people's interests being represented and making sure there's peace in the world.
Yeah, the consolidation you're talking about reminded me of the definition of fascism that is attributed to Italian dictator Mussolini in the 1920s, although that's disputed. No one can find a source, but no one disputes this definition. Supposedly, he said, instead of fascism, you could have called it corporatism because it's nothing but the merger of state and corporate power. That's what that quote says is the definition of fascism. And with the consolidation of corporations you described, there was a Texan named Jim Mars who's an historian. I don't know. Do you ever hear of him or read his books?
No, actually, I'm curious.
Well, he wrote a massive history of the Kennedy assassination in the mid 80s called Crossfire, the plot that killed John F. Kennedy. It was a basis for Oliver Stone's movie JFK. And then he wrote a bunch of other things.
I've seen
Um,
JFK. Yeah.
Well, everyone should see that movie and wake the beep up about that. And Jim Mars said, standing on that definition of fascism, he said in Nazi Germany, the state took over the corporations. In modern America, the corporations have taken over the state, and the result is the same. So, to me and him and many other observers, we've been a fascist country for a long, long time. And with the consolidation of corporate power and the big companies investing in AI, we'll be needing less and less human beings, and the consolidation of the surveillance, which you know much more than I do based on your career and industry expertise. Evan, what do you say to folks who see your bio and your everything and just wonder, is he just a Democrat version of a facilitator of this is a hard question. Runaway fascism that serves this, to many, me included, bloated and unnecessary military industrial complex that causes every administration to start baloney unnecessary wars just to ensure job security and perpetual growth. What do you say to that? Very, very challenging question, I think.
I think I think I have my heart has always been in things for the right reasons. So I wanted to serve my country because I grew up watching the likes of uh, JFK and Martin Luther King, and I believed in the American dream. Um, when September 11th hit, I felt like it was the right thing to do to go serve my country, sort of in the tradition of the greatest generation. Freedom isn't free. Um, I learned a lot along the way, right? I certainly understand the military. I understand the defense industrial complex. I'll give you a great example. I was deploying um, years away from my family and my young kids um, in support of the war in Afghanistan, which I believed in the beginning. Um, I sort of assumed that the war would end once we got Osama bin Laden, but then here we were nearly a decade after we were still bombing and troops were still dying in Afghanistan. And nobody could tell us what the end state was, what the end goal was. So I have seen firsthand what I would call the effect of the forever war. And I'm not the only politician like this. If you talk to Graham Plattner, you'll see some of the most fervent kind of supporters of or most outspoken people against wars without clear political objectives are people who were in wars because um, we can't afford to keep doing what we did in Afghanistan, which is go to war for 20 years and then leave and frankly abandon the people there after destroying their nation. I think we made things worse, not better. So, from a business perspective, I think American businesses have to compete. Defense businesses have to compete, but the right way to compete is to have healthy competition. And I don't think that merger after merger after merger, consolidation after consolidation, in the hands of just a few elite families, which is really what's happened because there's always big money behind these corporate mergers, um, is what's best for America. And we've allowed special interests and dark money to infect our politics ever since 2010 with Citizens United, right? We've just seen so much money spent on campaigns. And what I would tell people who are watching this is most of that money is going to Republicans. So Democrats of today are running grassroots campaigns. I'm running a grassroots campaign. My opponent is supported by every foreign interest pack you can imagine, APAC, Albanian pack. He's supported by defense companies, including my former employer, Raytheon. He's supported by the likes of Elon Musk and Elon Musk's companies, SpaceX and Tesla. And um, I have nearly 3,000 individual donations. The average donation is $30. So I would tell people to follow the money, and politicians will, I think everybody's sort of disappointed with politicians. The politicians will tend to tell people what they want to hear, but um, you have to vote for people that speak to your heart and who you think um, are serving grassroots donors. It's about who supports those politicians, how those politicians get to power. Because
Mhm.
frankly, the people that put you in power are the people that you're going to serve. And so I would advise people to look at campaigns like mine, which are truly backed by grassroots hearts and minds, by average people, small businesses, because that's who I intend to serve when I get to power.
Have you, in this conversation, Evan, been able to share your favorite things that you like to share when you discuss your reasons for running?
I think so. I think I would just say America has some challenges. We have, I call it the AAA threat. We have terrible apathy where people don't believe their voice or their vote matters. We've got a lot of aggression. People are divided, and if you speak your mind, you'll get trolled or people will get violent. And we've got algorithms. We've got billionaire-backed algorithms that are working to divide us tirelessly every day. And we all feel a little bit ruled by the extremes in politics. And I try to remind people the reason we're being ruled by the extremes is because the extremes are the only ones involved in politics. And because money equates to power, especially in our current political environment, big money that is also extreme is incredibly dangerous. And they are ruling our politics right now. So we have to get average, everyday Americans back involved. We have to build community, put that community into action, and then we can counter that AAA threat and start electing leaders who don't engage in this politics of division and distraction, needless culture wars. They're not fixing anything, and get back to electing politicians who really want to represent the people, really want to use the government as a force for good for 99% of Americans, not just an elite 1%.
What do you say to the folks who are convinced that the oligarchs around President Trump, especially in the form of Palantir and the recent revelations of its 22-point agenda for the future, are horrified about the digital surveillance and enslavement that seems to be strangling us?
Yeah, this is what I mean. We need representatives who are willing to take on big tech and willing to take on big money. Technology can do so much good. AI, self-driving cars, uh, even surveillance technologies, they came about because there was a need. Problem that we have is not the technology itself. The problem we have is that government representatives aren't doing their job and protecting their people and passing legislation that puts limits on big tech. And so, a perfect example, the Big Beautiful Bill, the first time it was passed by the House, it included a 10-year moratorium on AI regulation. Nobody knew where it came from. The likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, when they noticed it after she passed it, she started complaining about it. It eventually got taken out, but um, I would call that a sinister, and subversive line that got entered into that bill by somebody that most people don't even talk about. And we would have a 10-year moratorium on AI regulation. And think about all the bad that AI can do with those surveillance technologies, right? With this consolidation of power, with the effects of social media. If anybody's taking our small business, if anybody's taking our jobs, it's not going to be the illegal immigrants, really. It's going to be AI and robots. And we should be actively planning for that future and actively protecting everyday American interests in line with the Constitution, in line with our rights. instead of, I don't know what they're doing, just blaming groups of people for problems. That's really what, oh, if we just go bomb Iran, everything's going to get better. If we just deport the illegals, everything's going to get better. Well, now it's not the illegals. Now it's the legal immigrants too, the H-1B visa fraud and the latest from my opponent, Keith Self, is this wave of Islamophobia, the anti-Sharia caucus. They're trying to take over America. All of this does not help everyday Americans. This is just, frankly, nonsense meant to distract us while big money and corporate interests um, have their way.
I could do this all day. I love this kind of stuff. Tell everyone again your website and any final thoughts, my friend.
Thank you so much, Bruce. You can find me at electevanhunt.com or electevanhunt on virtually all socials. I tend to write a policy position every 2 or 3 days, so you can get to know me and my policies, especially if you follow Facebook. And I will meet anybody for a coffee or for a virtual call. Just please reach out. We got to do this one person at a time. That's the only way to win.
I thank you very much. Stay with me after I stop the recording, but I want to thank you again. And I want to thank everybody for watching and listening today.